The coaster at Sean's house wasn't heavy, just honest. Cork ringed with faint black stains from years of condensation, the kind you'd never notice unless you were sober. I ran my thumb along the edge while he launched into the same bit he'd done since college. A joke about our professor's lisp and a lost term paper that always ended in loud laughs and someone spitting out beer. Not me this time. I just nodded, didn't even fake the chuckle. And that silence? It landed louder than any punchline. You'd think quitting drinking would feel more dramatic, more of a final bottle on the table moment, a tearful, shaky hands goodbye to a past self. But it wasn't like that. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. I was walking past the corner store, the one with the red neon cold beer sign that always buzzed slightly louder in summer. And I just didn't go in. No cravings, no speech. I just kept walking. Maybe that's how you know something's real, when it stops needing an audience. But let me back up. You'll need some context to understand why stopping felt quieter than staying. I'm Nate, 36, HVAC technician by trade, mediocre guitarist by stubborn hobby, and up until 6 weeks ago, the guy everyone texted when they wanted to grab one real quick after work. Divorced, no kids. My ex, Rachel, used to joke that she could tell how my day went by the time I got home and whether I smelled like Miller Lite or Jameson. That stopped being funny the night she called my brother because I passed out in the driveway. Head against the wheel, engine still running. She left 2 months later. But that was 3 years ago. You'd think that'd be my wake-up call. It wasn't. Not really. I told myself I was grieving, that drinking was how I stayed social, that it kept me from getting bitter. Hell, I believed that, until it didn't feel true anymore. The shift started slow. No AA meetings, no loud declarations, just subtraction. At first, it was little things. I skipped beer runs, ordered club soda with lime when we met at the Forge, our regular dive. Told the guys I was on antibiotics when they asked. No one questioned it. Not yet. The first real test came the night of Mike's birthday. A backyard thing with lawn chairs, red Solo cups, burgers smoking on the grill. The kind of party that runs on habit more than planning. I brought a 6-pack of ginger beer and a smile. Trying the healthy stuff, huh? Sean ribbed, giving my bottle a light tap with his own. Let me guess. Whole 30? Just cutting back, I said. Lie. But I wasn't ready for the truth. That night, someone, I think it was Eli, launched into the Wendy from HR story. The one where she walked into the men's bathroom by accident during the office Christmas party, mid-phone call, and didn't realize it until the echo changed. We'd all heard it a dozen times. Used to be funny. This time, I didn't laugh. I tried. I smiled, gave that polite chuckle people do when they don't want to be the wet blanket. But it didn't land. Not the way it used to. The punchline felt off, like a scratch in a song you used to love. They noticed. Not out loud, not yet. But the glances passed between Sean and Eli told me what I needed to know. Something about me was changing, and they didn't quite know if it was allowed. In the days after, it got worse. Not the not drinking part. That part, honestly, felt like relief. But the noise around it? People don't like mirrors, especially ones that reflect things they're not ready to see. And suddenly, I was holding one. Just by being present, quiet, sober. At work, I'd sit in the break room, sipping my coffee, while the others talked about the new bar that opened on 5th. You gotta come next time, Nate, my apprentice Tyler said. It's got this thing where they pour fire over the rim of the shot glass. Freaking awesome. Sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen, I said. He laughed. I didn't. Again, it wasn't deliberate. But these moments started piling up, like someone gently dropping coins into a jar. You don't hear the weight until it's full. The first confrontation came from an unexpected angle: my mother. We were having Sunday dinner, just her and me. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the usual comfort fare. She poured herself a glass of red and offered me some. "No thanks," I said. She paused. "You sure? You always liked a little something with dinner." "Yeah, I'm done with that." She set her fork down. "Is this a phase or something serious?" I shrugged. "I just don't want it anymore." Her look said what she didn't, but that was your thing. See, my family, good people, hardworking, quiet, don't really do feelings. We do drinks, toasts, hushed murmurs at funerals, beer after yard work, wine on holidays. That's how we say, "I love you, I'm proud, I'm sorry." Without that glue, I think she felt a little lost, like I'd pulled out a thread no one noticed was holding us together. That dinner ended early. She hugged me at the door and said, "Just be careful who you turn into, okay?" I didn't know what that meant at the time. I do now. I wish I could say my friends were more supportive. But subtle alienation is worse than outright judgment. At the Forge, I noticed it first in the seating. They'd grab the booth without waiting. Save a spot for Eli, not for me. The jokes got more pointed. "Hey, Nate, want me to check if that ginger beer has any spirit in it?" "Careful, man. His drink might call the cops." I played along at first, laughed politely, but the laughs felt rented, not owned. It came to a head one Friday night. Eli was doing his usual drunk philosopher bit, slurring his way through some theory about how our generation was too soft because we never had to fight in a war. I used to laugh, roll my eyes, take another sip. This time, I just stared at him. And when he finally asked, "What, no punchline for that, Nate?" I shook my head. "I'm just wondering how many times you're going to tell that story before you realize no one's listening anymore." The table fell silent. Sean coughed. "Whoa, all right. Someone's edgy tonight." "No, just awake." That was the last time I went to the Forge. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I didn't need it anymore. In the quiet that followed, I realized how much of my identity had been tied to being the fun one. The guy who always said yes to one more round. The dependable drunk friend. Safe, funny, reliable. And once I stopped playing that role, they didn't know what to do with me. Turns out, when you change the music, not everyone wants to dance. The hardest part wasn't the withdrawal or the cravings. I honestly didn't have many. The hardest part was the loneliness. I had removed a piece of myself from every room I used to walk into. And now, I was standing in the doorway, wondering if I'd still be welcome. Some days, I wanted to cave. Just one drink, I told myself. Just to remind them I'm still me. But the truth is I wasn't. Not anymore. And the longer I stayed sober, the more I realized I didn't miss the buzz. I missed being understood. That understanding came, oddly, from the last person I expected, Josh, Rachel's brother. He called one night out of the blue. "Hey," he said, "I heard you quit drinking." "How'd you hear that?" "Rachel mentioned it. She said you looked clear." Clear. Not better. Not healthier. Clear. Like a window finally washed. "She said you weren't laughing much, though," he added. I almost hung up. But then he said, "It's hard, isn't it? When the silence gets louder than the noise ever was." I sat down. "You too?" I asked. 2 years last month?" And just like that, I wasn't alone. We met the next weekend. Coffee, not whiskey. Sunlight, not bar lights. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Sometimes, all you need is someone who understands why the joke isn't funny anymore. And maybe, just maybe, why that's okay. "Don't you miss it?" he asked, not looking up from his cappuccino. I swirled my black coffee, watching the bubbles swirl like storm clouds. Sometimes, I said, but not for the reasons people think. Josh nodded like he already knew. That was the thing about sobriety. The real kind, not the performative kind. It built fluency in quiet truths. Josh and I started meeting once a week after that. Sometimes it was a diner, other times a park bench, or just a slow walk through the older part of town where the sidewalk cracks were wide enough to trip on if you weren't paying attention. We didn't talk about Rachel. We didn't talk about guilt. We didn't talk about redemption. We mostly talked about things like how weird it is that soda tastes sweeter after 30, or how old songs sound different when you stop listening drunk. Josh told me that at his 1-year mark, he bought a turntable. Not for the music, but for the ceremony, for the intentionality of flipping sides, of setting the needle, of listening all the way through. I used to skip tracks constantly, he said. Now I don't. I let things finish. That stuck with me. At work, I was changing too. I used to be the guy who always volunteered for overtime, not because I loved the work, but because it meant I could justify 2 drinks after. Long day, I'd say, like stress was a currency I could exchange for numbness. But now, I started leaving on time. Started packing lunch instead of grabbing gas station food in a tallboy. Even Tyler noticed. "Everything all right, man?" he asked one Thursday while we were unloading units into a walk-up. "Yeah, why?" "You're just different. Not bad, just quieter." I nodded. "Trying something new." He paused. "Like a new job?" "No, just me. Trying a new me." He laughed nervously, like he wasn't sure if I was joking, but I wasn't. And for once, I didn't feel the need to explain myself beyond that. Sean, though. Sean wasn't adapting as easily. We'd known each other since high school, been through breakups, layoffs, family funerals, fantasy football drafts, and one very bad camping trip where we forgot the tent poles. He wasn't just a drinking buddy, he was a friend, or so I thought. But as I got quieter, he got louder. Texts started to come in waves. "You mad or something? Did I say something that pissed you off? You've been MIA, bro." And then finally, it's just weird when someone changes the whole vibe and doesn't say why. I didn't reply right away. I reread that one a few times, and I realized something that hadn't clicked before. He wasn't mad I stopped drinking. He was mad I stopped being the mirror he liked to look into. I texted him back. Not mad, just tired of pretending it's still fun when it's not. He left it on read. 3 days later, I got invited to a cookout. A big one. Friends I hadn't seen in months. I almost didn't go. I was already picturing the ice chest full of beer, the jokes, the sideways looks if I showed up empty-handed. But I went. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to know if I could. It was as expected. The grill was on high. The music was lo-fi hip-hop, with the occasional nostalgic throwback, and there were more lawn chairs than actual lawn. Eli was already halfway drunk by the time I arrived. "Hey, look who crawled out of his hermit shell," he shouted, arms wide. "You want a Corona or a judgmental silence?" I forced a smile. "Just water." "Still on that monk grind, huh?" I walked past him. Sean was at the grill. He glanced up, then back down at the burger he was flipping. "You came. You invited me." He grunted. "Wasn't sure you'd show." There was a pause. The meat sizzled louder than either of us spoke. "You still mad?" he asked. "I was never mad." Another pause. He wiped his hands on a towel, looked at me finally. "You just stopped laughing at anything. Because it stopped being funny." He didn't argue, just nodded slowly. Then he said something I didn't expect. I've been thinking about cutting back too. It wasn't a revelation. It wasn't a confession, but it was a crack in the wall. We didn't talk more that day, but I caught him later, pouring half a beer into a red cup, then filling the rest with seltzer. Small steps. Rachel called that night. I hadn't spoken to her in months. She was the one who asked for no contact after the divorce, and I respected that. But here she was, name glowing on my screen. I answered on the third ring. Hey, hey, I heard from Josh. Oh? He said you've been different. There was that word again. I waited. I wanted to say, I'm proud of you. It hit harder than I thought it would, not because I needed her validation, but because I didn't realize how much weight my silence had carried until someone acknowledged it. Thanks, I said. A beat. You sound calm, she added. I smiled. Yeah, I think I am. That night I sat on my porch with a glass of iced tea, staring up at a moon that looked more like a question mark than a spotlight. I thought about the old me, the one who used to need a drink just to enjoy the silence. Now, I was finally starting to hear myself in it. The next day, I ran into Tyler at the supply yard. He handed me a coffee he'd picked up from the gas station. No cream, no sugar, just how you like it now, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You remembered? Man, I've been watching you show up early, leave clear-headed, and actually have energy to do paperwork. It's hard not to notice. He smiled. It's cool, dude. You're like proof that people can actually change. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, but later, while riding in the van between jobs, I thought, maybe being quiet about change makes it louder. It was 5:46 on a Monday morning when I realized my hands didn't shake anymore. I'd just wrapped them around a travel mug, steam curling into the pre-dawn kitchen light, and for the first time in years, maybe since Rachel and I bought this house, they were steady. I didn't feel like I was chasing the day. The day felt like it was waiting on me. There's a strange kind of clarity that comes in your third month sober, not just about the alcohol, but about the things you poured it over. Regrets don't disappear. They float up, surface. The things I'd said half drunk, the birthdays I was too foggy to remember, the subtle ways I'd made other people carry the weight of my choices. But here's the part nobody tells you. It's not the shame that hurts the most. It's the silence that follows once you stop performing for the people who expected you to keep the act going. I started therapy. That's not the dramatic part. The dramatic part was admitting to myself that I needed it, not because I was falling apart, but because I was finally well enough to hold the pieces. Her name was Dana, late 40s, wore muted scarves, and had a laugh that felt unforced. In our first session, she asked me, "What do you want to feel less of?" I said, "Lonely." She didn't blink, just nodded. "And what do you want to feel more of?" I paused. Understood. By others? By me. One thing I learned quickly: sobriety doesn't fix you. It unmasks you. And what I saw in the mirror wasn't just a guy who stopped drinking. It was a guy who had been avoiding every hard thing with charm and beer and just one more round. That included my dad. My dad's name is Russ. He's a retired pipe fitter. Hard hands, short sentences, weekends in the garage kind of guy. Grew up on black coffee, John Wayne movies, and believing emotion was something you dealt with privately. Or not at all. We hadn't talked much since my divorce. Or rather, we talked about nothing. Weather, truck maintenance, what the price of lumber was doing this month. The last time we'd had anything close to a real conversation, I was 19 and trying to explain why I didn't want to go into the trades. He'd said, "Suit yourself," and walked off. I'd spent the next 15 years trying to earn words he wasn't going to give. But something shifted that Sunday. I stopped by his place after church, not for any religious reason, just because it was the only time I knew he'd be still. The TV was on low, a fishing show neither of us cared about, and I sat in the recliner he never let anyone else use. He grunted. That was permission. "You want a beer?" he asked, already reaching into the fridge. "No, I'm good." He paused. "You sick or something?" I shook my head. "Just done with it." He didn't say anything. Sat back down. On screen, a guy pulled a trout from a murky river. "I stopped too," he said. So quiet, I thought I imagined it. I turned. "What?" He took a deep breath, eyes still on the screen. "Your mom didn't ask me to. I just got tired of waking up angry." We didn't hug, didn't cry, didn't exchange some movie-perfect apology, but we watched that fishing show for another hour and a half. And when I left, he handed me a jar of his pickled jalapenos, like a strange offering. In his language, that was a handshake. At work, I kept noticing little things I'd missed before. The way Tyler tapped his fingers when he was nervous. The way the unit trucks needed to be balanced differently depending on the weather. The fact that Ms. DeWitt, one of our longtime clients, always offered cold Gatorade but never drank any herself. She just liked the gesture. Being sober made me slower, but not in a bad way. I was starting to see people, including myself. Eli texted out of nowhere. "Still mad?" I didn't respond for a day. I wanted to, but I didn't want to feed the same rhythm. Then I wrote, "I was never mad, just done laughing at things that aren't funny." He replied, "Fair." Then, "Want to grab coffee sometime?" Not a trick question. I said yes. We met at a diner we used to stumble into after late-night poker games. He was already seated, fidgeting with a sugar packet, looking like someone who wasn't sure if this counted as a peace offering or a confession. "Thanks for coming," he said. "No big." A beat. "You look good," he said. "You look like someone who's trying not to say the wrong thing." He smirked. "Fair." We sat in that limbo for a few minutes. Then he leaned in. "Honestly, I didn't know how to act around you anymore. You not drinking made me realize how much I needed you to." That landed heavier than either of us expected. He looked away. "It made me feel like maybe you were moving on from us, like we were the problem." I stirred my coffee. "You weren't the problem, but you were the camouflage." It didn't end with a hug. No big forgiveness arc. But as I walked out, I realized something important. Not everyone needs to stay in your life the same way they entered it. Some people you carry forward. Some you just thank for the ride. Week 14 of sobriety came with no ceremony. Just another Monday. But it marked the first time in a long time that I woke up and felt like I didn't need to prove I'd changed to anyone. Not even myself. Josh and I met for lunch that day. He brought a book of poetry someone had recommended to him. I used to think poetry was for people with too much time or too many feelings. Now, I found myself underlining lines that made me feel less alone. One line stuck out. "Recovery is not climbing out. It's staying put long enough to name the dark." Later that evening, I got a message from Rachel. A photo. It was me and her, 3 years ago. A wedding we'd gone to. We were both smiling, her head on my shoulder, a glass in my hand. Her message said, "You were happy here, but you're stronger now. Just wanted you to know I see that." I didn't cry, but I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, "Thank you. That means more than you know." And that night, lying in bed with the window open and the hum of late summer bugs outside, I whispered something I hadn't said in a long time. "I'm proud of you." And for once, I meant it. The paper cup was still warm when I passed it to the man on the corner. He looked up from his blanket with cautious eyes, the kind that had learned not to expect much. I said, "It's just coffee. No strings." He nodded once. My hand felt colder after I let go. It was a small thing, but sobriety had taught me that the smallest things could feel like tectonic shifts. By month 4, the world didn't feel new. It felt clearer, like someone had finally cleaned the windshield after a long, bug-splattered drive. Nothing magical had happened. I wasn't richer. I didn't suddenly have a six-pack. My friendships hadn't all been repaired. My love life was still a barren field with a closed for maintenance sign. But the weight in my chest, it was lighter. I'd started journaling. At first, it felt awkward, like I was pretending to be someone else, someone more, evolved. But I kept at it. 5 minutes in the morning, 10 at night. Not just the big thoughts, little things, like how the sunrise hit the corner of the porch at 7:08, how black coffee tasted more bitter after a salty meal, how I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks when a squirrel fell off my fence chasing a nut. That laugh caught me off guard. It wasn't at someone else's expense. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just mine. Sean reached out again. Game night. No booze. You in? I stared at the text. It felt like an olive branch, or maybe a test. But either way, I said yes. I showed up with a liter of ginger beer and a bag of tortilla chips. The others were already there. Eli, Tyler, even Dan, who usually avoided group stuff. No one had a drink in hand, just water, coffee. One guy had a protein shake. You serious about this whole no alcohol thing? I asked Sean, pulling him aside in the kitchen. He shrugged. Figured if you can do it for months, I can do it for one night. I nodded. Appreciate that. He looked me in the eye. I didn't get it at first. Honestly, I thought you were trying to be better than us. I raised an eyebrow, but now I realize you were just trying to be better for you. We played code names, talked trash, ate way too many pretzels. Someone played lo-fi hip-hop in the background. It felt like old times, except I wasn't scanning for exits or wondering how long I could pretend to be engaged before zoning out. I was present. That word had become the quiet anthem of my recovery. 2 days later, I ran into Rachel in the checkout line at a grocery store neither of us used to shop at. She smiled. I smiled. No drama, no sting. She glanced at the sparkling water in my basket. Still holding strong? I held up the bottle. You bet. She hesitated, then said, You look good. Like, solid. I wasn't sure what to say, but the truth is, I felt that way. Not euphoric, not ecstatic, but solid, like my feet were on something firm again. We said goodbye. No promises to catch up. Just a mutual recognition of the people we used to be and the strangers we were now. And that was okay. One night, I took a walk past the Forge. Just curiosity. It was Friday. Parking lot half full. I could hear laughter, the dull bass of jukebox music through the walls. I stood across the street for a minute. I didn't miss it. I missed who I thought I was when I was in there. But that guy, the funny one, the life of the party, the guy who never said no, he was tired. Always was. I whispered, thanks, under my breath, to the place, to the past, to the version of me that didn't know how to stop. Then I walked home. Later that week, I had my 5th therapy session with Dana. She asked, what would happen if you told people the truth when they asked why you quit? I paused. I think they'd feel judged. Why? Because I used to feel judged by people who didn't drink. And now? I sat back. Now I get it. It wasn't them. It was me. I didn't want to sit with my own reflection. She nodded. So when you stopped laughing at the same jokes, what do you think they saw? My exit. Dana said nothing, just waited. Then I added, But really, it was just the start of my own entrance. A few days after that, I visited my mom. She had garden clippings all over the kitchen table and a confused cat on the windowsill. We talked about the usual yard stuff, weather, her church group. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "Your dad told me he stopped drinking too." I nodded. "He said he saw how you were changing, said he wanted to see what it was like to stop being numb." She wiped her hands on a dish towel. "It's been 30 years, Nate. I never thought I'd see it." I didn't say anything. I just took a seat and helped her sort the lavender from the weeds. Tyler pulled me aside after a job one afternoon. "You mind if I ask something personal?" I shrugged. "Go ahead." "Was it hard? Like, at first?" I didn't sugarcoat it. "Yeah, mostly because it made me feel things I didn't want to feel. But the hard part didn't last forever." He looked down. "I think I might want to try, just for a month." I clapped him on the shoulder. "Start with a week, then we'll talk." He smiled. "You're like the quiet version of one of those podcast guys. No pressure, just presence." I laughed. That one felt good. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I no longer need everyone to understand. I just need to keep understanding myself." And beneath it, sobriety didn't make me a new person. It just gave the real one room to stretch. I didn't quit drinking because I wanted to become a better person. I quit because I was tired of being a blurry one. The kind of guy whose stories came with disclaimers, whose apologies always followed silence, whose laughter arrived late and left early. And now that it's been almost 6 months, I don't want that guy back. I didn't mark the 6-month point with a chip or a ceremony. I marked it by walking into the corner store where I used to buy my beer and walking out with nothing but toothpaste and dish soap. The cashier, the same one from a year ago who used to ring up my six-packs without a word, raised an eyebrow. "No beer tonight?" "Not anymore." He nodded like I'd said something both small and massive. "Good for you, man." It's strange how 3 words from a stranger can feel louder than dozens from people you used to drink with. Josh invited me to a speaker meeting, not a full-on AA gathering, more of a hybrid open forum. People told their stories, some raw, some poetic, some shaking while they spoke, some calm, like they were telling someone else's tale. Josh had warned me, "You don't have to share, just show up." So I showed up. There were about 30 people, church basement, cheap coffee, metal chairs that squeaked if you shifted too hard. The air smelled like industrial mop soap and burnt caffeine. A woman named Linda spoke, late 40s, former bartender. She said something that stuck with me. Drinking didn't make me a bad person. It made me a hollow one. I still had a name, a smile, a seat at the table, but no center. And getting sober didn't refill me. It just gave me permission to rebuild. I didn't cry, but my throat tightened in a way that felt honest. The following Saturday, Sean came by with a small cooler and a hesitant grin. "I didn't bring beer," he said before I even opened the door. Inside the cooler, 2 sparkling waters, a sandwich wrapped in foil, and a note that said, "Lunch on me. Thanks for still being here." He didn't stay long, just long enough to eat half the sandwich, nod a few times, and say he was proud of me, even if he didn't fully get it. I told him that was enough. Rachel texted again a week later. This time it was a longer message. "Hey, I know this might be weird, but thank you. Not for quitting drinking. That was your journey, but for showing me that people can change. And not just change for someone, change for themselves. I've been seeing someone. He's kind, quiet, solid, and for once, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." I stared at it for a while. Then I typed back, "That's not weird at all. I'm really happy for you." And I was. Really. Tyler reached his 1 week no drinking mark. He showed up to work with a stupid grin and a cup of black coffee. Tastes like dirt, he said, wincing. You'll get used to it, I replied. I don't know how you do it. I shrugged. 1 day at a time, then 1 week, then 1 month. Then you stop counting and start living. He stared at his cup like it might suddenly offer him life advice. You're like a sober Yoda, man. I laughed. That one echoed. One night I found the old group chat still active. The one from the Forge days. Jokes. Memes. Random football takes. I hadn't looked at it in months. I almost left it entirely. But instead, I scrolled back through. There was a photo from 6 months ago. Me, slouched, red-eyed, half-smile, a beer in my hand, a forced cheer in the caption, Nate's still undefeated. I didn't recognize that guy anymore, but I nodded at him. He was trying. I wrote one last line in my journal that night. I don't need everyone to notice I changed. I just need to keep becoming someone I'm proud to be. And beneath it, for the first time in half a year, I laughed out loud. Not at a joke, not at a memory, not for anyone else's approval, just because the quiet finally felt like home. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.